Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spincast Cycling Show. I'm your host, Brian Kellison. Low energy, Brian, right now. I just ran in here and then kind of calmed down. Brian White, Lisa Vries, and we have a special guest, our sort of floating guest, I guess, Casey Schumm from all things virtual cycling. Let's just say that. With the sponsor shirt on. He's got the sponsored shirt on, and he wasn't even riding. Did you ride that today?
I did not. No,
he did not. He's got the. Now, did you buy that shirt, or were you given that shirt?
I was given the shirt.
There you go. That's
I don't think I pay money for this.
I think it's a collector's item because it's not the original Z.
Here we go.
For the audio audience, he's wearing a orange Zwift, just basic Zwift shirt. Good.
Okay.
Good. They can't hear. Okay.
Now we should be fine.
Lee should have solved it.
I've got a feed bag. I've got a Zwift feed bag somewhere, but it's not within range.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Can they hear us on Twitch? It doesn't matter. No one's listening on Twitch. They're watching us on Twitch.
That is like the weirdest audio issue ever. But we all can hear, so we're good.
Okay, we're good now. Let's quiz Casey on his shirt. Now, he got this at a live event, or they mailed it to you?
This was
quiz. I'm just asking questions now.
No, this is actually like classic Zwift. This was way back. Some of us were hosting or leading group rides for Zwift, like way back in the day for some, I don't know, tour Zwift thing or whatever. So they had like group rides maybe once every couple of hours for whatever this event was. But like certain times of the day, they would have people from the community leading those rides kind of voluntarily. You could, they were kind of organizing that. And like 9 months after I did that, I got this random box that was this shirt and a water bottle and stuff from Zwift. And I was like, I reached out to one of my Zwift buddies, Johnny, and I was like, Johnny, what is this? And he's like, oh, you were on the list to get this swag because you helped lead this event. And I was like, dude, that was last year. Like, what? Who's that far behind? But I was like, well, okay, I'll take it.
You're on the mailing list. Or you got on the mailing list? Because I used to be previous job. I used to go to like events and stuff, and I went and talked to Magic the Gathering, which is Wizards of the Coast, whatever, nerd stuff. And I talked to somebody, I was like, oh, I'm just a fan. I work at Play. Oh, they put me on a list, and then I would get these things in the mail. Here, I got one right here. They're like holiday cards from the company. And so it'd be like, I don't know. And then I left the company that I was working for, and my friend was getting those. And then eventually that person's not even at the company anymore. So you're on a Zwift list.
I was on a Zwift list. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
So what's funny is I was looking at the font and I was like, that's an old shirt. Well, it was like in the area of October 2017 is when they changed to that specific font. And then September 2022, they changed the Zwift font on their logo. Just
that's right. Piece of information. Remember that was a big that was a big backlash. They got a huge backlash for that. And they had to fix the font within a couple days or something like that, because people couldn't make out whatever it was hard to read. The number one and the L were like the two. There wasn't like a little, like a little edge to it or something. Like, I can't see my XP.
Yeah.
Like all right, whatever. Moving on.
I remember that because I couldn't see like the numbers in the right side list when you were trying to see people's distances and watts per kilo. The font was so wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to put on my Zwift gear today and my Zwift background because I want somebody to earn like pulling us away from Zwift, and I don't feel like they're getting there. Like, they got to be better.
All right. I was going to bring something up about Zwift because I was actually going to ride this morning on Zwift. And usually the thing I look at, I actually opened the companion app, and I hadn't done that in a while. I rode outside yesterday. I streamed a live thing. It was a 50th anniversary of our club in the Bay Area. And I came home and I was like, oh, I'm going to ride in the morning. And I look at the KISS at 6:15 Pacific, which is the KISS 100. And I looked at that, and I'm a B category right now. There was 0 signups. So if you're saying what's pulling us away now, it's summer, but also there's other events. There was like the Epic, there's like the tiny, is it not the tiny Epic races?
Yeah.
Which I think
the
is
Zwift
Eric.
Insider Epic races.
Yeah.
So there's other events, at least early in the morning for Pacific time, pulling people away from that's like there's the infighting of events. But you're asking like how do people pull us away from actually launching the app, not double dipping, but actually launching the app?
Right.
I don't know. It's a little lull right now. That's why I've been opening Zwift, because there's a little lull. Like Indie Velo is kind of my go-to, and it's kind of flatlined a couple weeks now, and I haven't been super interested in jumping into like 115 degree heat in my garage. But MyWhoosh, I've been watching you and I've been watching Brian do MyWhoosh, and I can see where it's like, where are we right now?
Yeah.
Well, before we dive into the Zwift, since Cam is here, I just want to shout out to him that guy is unbelievable for on Sunday riding for what computer crashes. I don't even know how long you made it. Almost made the full Everest, gave up, came back Wednesday, and then did it again. That is phenomenal. Like,
yes, Cameron in the community, the Twitch, Zwift
Cam Carson
community,
and then it was phenomenal. Like,
fellow Canadian,
just unbelievable. And he fought through issues on each ride all day long. Like, I know Pookie and me were riding with him, and he'd disappear, come back. Then he couldn't
Pookie
stream. Aaron
yeah.
Shoemaker, Pookie, but yeah. And then, oh man, every time he'd disappear, our hearts would just like crash. Like, we're like, oh my God, what's happening? And then he'd pop back. And then he broke his chain. I didn't know that, but I just looked at his Strava. He broke his chain and still.
Okay, so just for someone who's not, I have no interest in Everesting or V Everesting or any of that stuff. Give me like a really short rule set. Like what do you need to do to like for the official thing?
Okay, you have to climb 8,848 meters, the height of Mount Everest, on 100% trainer difficulty, on the same exact climb, going up, down, no loops, just up and down. And you have to complete it. There's some rules, like you could take like a 2-hour break, like a 2-hour nap or something, but like there's some stuff like that.
So is it stay as true to like people who are climbing Mount Everest, like walking it?
I would just say it's the height. I don't think there's any comparison between actually climbing Mount Everest. I mean, Fez Wheel, he actually did climb the base camp part of it last year. So
that Mark, from the community.
Yeah, and if you want actual like V Everesting virtual recognition, there's some other pieces and parts of evidence you have to provide for trainer difficulty and stuff like that. I think a lot of the people are doing it in the community. They're not going to the website and logging them as official, but they're doing the spirit of the rules, but they're not necessarily submitting it. Yeah.
And another thing too is, it kind of goes in the grand scheme of what we're talking about, MyWhoosh and whatever. I can't remember right now. Jesus. I know Zwift, Ruvi, something I never heard of, like Riders Republic, and there's one other one that's the only official app. So you can't do it
anywhere. One of those official?
Yeah, you can't do it on MyWhoosh. It's
full gas. You can't do it on full gas.
I don't think
you can. Spirit wise, you can, but on the people that took over the official to make it official have ruined the spirit of it by making it just official.
And then Forbidden Goose, Tony Molinari, I think is how you say last name. I always call him just Goose, but he spent 30 hours on the bike, 30 hours doing his. So kudos to him, man. I rode with him a little bit as well. But yeah, it was 19 hours. But the total aspect of it was he was like 30 hours streaming. Wild. Whoop, bump my camera there. But yeah. So kudos to him. It was unbelievable. Like, I think that aspect, Goose, the mental fortitude to come back after taking care of his son, getting dinner, whatever he was doing, unreal. That was an epic.
I watched Cam's, which is Villager in the streaming.
Yeah.
Because I remember, oh man, what was his name? Steely Dan. What was his name? Not Steely Dan or whatever. He was a Canadian kid during the pandemic. And he did it. And he was just like, whatever. And then there's like this sort of like, go take a shower, get new bibs. It's like, that's not, I understand that that's good because you're inside. You're not like you're in the elements.
Yeah.
But there are things that can kind of get you through it. But like the fortitude to even just do that over and over and over again. Yes, everyone gets kudos for that.
It's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
probably easier in real life in the game, because you can get off your bike, stand
Right.
there, do stuff while you're going downhill. But still, it's an impressive feat because
You
I'll
can get
get-
off the bike and let it
Yeah.
descend
That's
without
like
you being on the bike.
whenever I was working with Doc last year, he did the 10,000 meters. We chose Innsbruck because you could
Okay.
go up to the top and coast all the way down. And I don't know. I bailed out, like I was going for the base camp where he was going for 10,000 meters.
I've seen a few, but I thought you had.
Yeah.
I thought you could get off the bike when you've come to a complete stop, and
No,
then
it's
do
like
your
you
rest
hop
and
off.
wipe your ass and all the other stuff. No,
Nah.
you can get off while it's going down.
Mhm.
Doesn't
Yeah.
that sort of defeat the purpose of it sort of being? You're like you're in the
ultimately,
saddle while it's going down. Like you're only going up
still-
because you have to go up the same thing over and over and again. So you have to go up and down, right? You're just going up and then getting
Yeah.
off, and it virtually goes down.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now I'm being a rules person, which I don't want to do because I've been watching a lot of soccer and I have a problem with that sport as well. Okay. What are we getting into here? Let's get moving on.
Yeah. Well, I had to give those kudos. So let's get to Zwift.
That was a good
the
kudos. It's
racing
good. It's good.
score.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do we get out of Zwift? How do we stop using Zwift since it is pulling us?
you stop using
orbit
Zwift by taking all of your Zwift data
Oh, that's
and
right.
importing it into MyWhoosh.
Yeah.
Because I'm officially now level 74 in MyWhoosh.
Oh, you went up more.
No,
level
so I
74.
found there's a glitch. When you log into MyWhoosh, the game, it only lets you go up 10 levels before it stops. So if you log out, log back in, I kept on doing that, and I ended up on level 74, and I have 1 second ridden in MyWhoosh
Okay.
using
You know
my
about this,
Zwift,
Casey?
using Zwift data.
I'm logging in right now so I can beat Zav because I'm at 71, but I still have some to go.
I watched him, and he was leveled. Like he rode today.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I'm
were
leveling
you
up
there
right
today
now.
or yesterday?
Hold on.
Were you today or yesterday?
73, 74, 75,
Damn you.
76, 77, 78, 79.
Share your screen. Share your screen. Let's see it live.
80,
Share your screen. Share your screen.
81. Okay, level 81.
Oh, you beat me, damn it.
Barney has like 140 or something. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, Barney did his too.
Yeah, he's at the end
wow.
of Sunday Race Club. It was like beep, 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 beep. He got like 39,000
Something
XP
like
points or something.
13,500 coins to spend on stuff.
Oh wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So if
The
anyone who
jerseys
doesn't
actually
know that,
look decent in MyWhoosh.
yeah, except for
I
Brian's.
actually did use some coins to buy a
Brian's
jersey.
choices are terrible. I have to say.
I
I'm calling you out
bought
on
it
that.
because it was totally different. That was the only reason.
It is totally
Hands out.
different. It is
Yeah.
terrible. That
And
is
then
that is
I haven't
different.
seen anyone with the yellow cap
Oh, the
thing,
Pantani.
whatever that
That's
is.
another
Yeah.
bad. That's another bad look.
It on purpose just to stand out.
What I did notice is once you import your data, it seems like the option to import again is gone. Because I just logged into the
Oh.
MyWhoosh website and I can't find the import button.
Oh,
So
it's
it
a
kind
one-time
of gives
only.
you like a one-shot deal of like, give me all your Zwift info and we will import that. And then you're like done.
What about RGT info? Will they take it all, or is it just
Well,
Zwift?
you
Any
can-
virtual platform.
Yeah,
No
you just have to
way.
provide. Well, you have to. Here's the thing, though. If you provide one platform, you're probably done. So pick the one that you have the most in.
Oh,
But it's easy
Oh,
enough
that's-
because it just asks for your
Double
hours or
dipper.
days ridden, your
Well-
kilometers, and your elevation. And then I just took a screenshot of my Zwift profile and
Yeah.
added that as a picture. And it took them a week and a half to do it. But then I got an email saying, you are approved, log in. And then it was like level. sit there
It took
clicking
mine a
for
while like that too, about a week and a half. Now Barney said he did his with Strava, and I don't think they're
Yeah.
doing Strava anymore. I think they shut that
No.
down.
I tried to do Strava because I actually imported since like 2011, added up all my time and was like, I have 150,000 kilometers. And it kept on erroring every time I tried to upload a
Oh.
file. So I just decided to use Zwift because I think that's sort of an even shift, Zwift to MyWhoosh.
Yeah.
So I'm
Do we want to
basically the
guess what
same
level
level.
I'm gonna? You want to guess what level I'm gonna go to? I'm at 121 now.
What?
Yeah, you're gonna be like 175.
I'm just logging out, logging in.
Yeah.
I'm going.
guess is,
My line is 175.
yeah.
What do you
I don't
guys
know how
want
much
above that? Like
Barney
this is price
has.
right. No, this is a good one because Casey. So here's the thing. This is your Casey's gonna have a great proof of this. Is he's been piling levels when they capped him on Zwift at 50.
Yeah.
Then he capped him at 60, and now he's been over 100 or whatever. But MyWhoosh is like, there's no cap. So he's probably like, that's the thing is like him and Weebles and who else has been riding and we're like, they were just ride all the time and it was capped at 50. They're
I know
going to go.
Scott was at level 100. I don't know where he ended up at.
I'm at 128. It doesn't look like it's giving me any more. I just
No?
logged out and
Oh,
logged
okay.
in, and I didn't get any more.
Damn, my line. You guys didn't even bite on that. All right, whatever. But
with
there's no cap. You're already above 100. That's a good pull. That's a good pull. If you're like, hey, I am driven by Zwift, the carrot, in front of you on the rabbit thing. I want more levels. I want to get credit for all the rides that I've been doing, not just drops, but the XP. That would be a reason to go, hey, I can transfer all my stuff over and I can keep that journey going. And that would be a draw to pull me away.
From a video game standpoint, it's a good move from MyWhoosh because I know a lot of people, even in real life, who are like, I got so much time and effort spent in Zwift. There's no way I can just move somewhere else. Like I'll waste 8 years of my life in Zwift. I can't lose that. Like Zwift's got people because of that. Now MyWhoosh is like, yeah, give us your Zwift data, and we'll just like give you credit for it.
And I think it offers a little bit. I wasn't a big fan of it, and we talked about this last time I was on. I'm not a big fan of it moving over, but also on the other side of it, now if I log into a MyWhoosh race, even though I have 9 hours in the game or something like that, not a ton of time, my experience in indoor riding is reflected in my levels. So someone who's going to communicate with me and look at the levels is going to be like, oh, like not necessarily my Whoosh experience, but he's an indoor rider, right? Like he's got level 128. He's been around a while. He kind of gets it.
It's a resume builder. Like, or it is a conversation starter where someone's like, hey, you're level 100. What are you, 128?
Yeah.
Hey, you're level 128. I know and they're not looking at your distance. Like most people, I think that was before, I don't know how long XP has been around in Zwift, but from what I understand, when I was first getting into Zwift, it was the guy in Australia who rode like 100,000 kilometers, something like that. What's his name? Bacon Man or whatever. Whatever, Bacon dude. That's a thing that Casey has is like, hey, I'm new. I'm seeing somebody that's been here and they're like for lack of a better reference or analogy, the grand Dungeons and Dragons character, or, like the DM that knows what's going on and they can help me out.
That's usually the way it works until they wreck the XP in Zwift. And now you have like a million people who are like, oh, I started Zwift 4 months ago and now I'm a level 100. Like, right. Before you would look at someone and be like, whoa, a level 100? Or, oh, when they were level 50, like, whoa, level 50, that's crazy. You got to level 50? Like,
yeah. So you're getting the credit to come over. And Casey is, now we're going to have this sort of comparison of hey, are you actually 28 levels higher in Zwift, but you're not getting that reflection of it? So is the social settings and the population of real people sort of like all they have left? Not all they have left, but like a big majority of it versus, hey, all of the other things that are motivating factors to kind of ride in another platform.
So my experience this week, and this is where I've struggled a little bit with MyWhoosh. I've been trying to get involved with it, and it's just I'm kind of I'm fighting through it because I want to spend some time in it, but I'm also like, hey, the average guy coming over here and trying this is not going to do this. Like I logged in, 2 days ago, jumped into, joined a race or clicked, enrolled in a race, and then jumped in and practiced drafting a little bit with pace partner. And when my race got close, I clicked the join event button and popped over into the pin, and the pin opens and I go nowhere. And I was like, son of a gun. I remember reading on Facebook, there's a bug. If you join the event from the pace partner, you don't move. But I was like, I joined an event that I'm sure it was mostly bots, but like I got in this big populated event and then I didn't go anywhere. And I'm like, the next event's in 30 minutes. So I closed the app and I went to Zwift because I was like, I'm here to ride. Jumped over to Zwift, did an absolutely miserable race and wrecked myself.
But you bring up a great point. Go. You finish.
No, but then so that's like that was my first experience. But so then like the next day, today, I'm like, okay, I'm going back to MyWhoosh. And I opened up the app and I'm like, okay, there's an event that starts in 20 minutes. I got all my stuff, joined up to that event, and I entered the pin with like 4 minutes to go. And this leads to something Marble was talking about last week too on the show I listened to. Joined with like 4 minutes to go. There's one other guy in there. Don't know if it was a bot or a real person. But then I'm kind of tootling along, and with about 2 minutes to go, all of a sudden, like my guy's going, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I missed, like I was distracted, so I was like, oh, maybe I missed the countdown timer, and I started riding, and I figured out that if it wasn't a bot, it was just a person riding steady. Like they wouldn't react to me, they wouldn't do anything, riding 2 watts per kilo, and I'm like, oh, this is frustrating. I knew there was another race in 15 minutes, so I jumped into that. Had the same thing happen. Paid attention to the clock. I went out of the starting pin with 154 on the clock, on the countdown.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And then that event was the same thing, and I got frustrated with it and knew in 15 minutes there was another event. So I left that one, got into the last event, and 2 people were in the pin this time, and one of the guys waved at me in like the first 3 miles, like with a little, so I'm like, oh, it's a real person. I know it's not a bot. But it still wasn't competitive. So with 2 kilometers to go, I did 5:0 and just rode away from the guy and won by 30 seconds. So so I was just frustrated because like I want to come here.
I see what you're saying.
I want to do the Sunday race stuff. That sounded interesting to me, but when I started looking at the rules, I was like, I don't want to dive into racing like this like I used to, unless it's going to be fun. So I wanted to try the racing to see if it's like, I'm not going to do it unless it's good racing. So I wanted to try the platform to make sure it was good racing before I invested all that time. And I don't know. I'm not getting enough feedback to know.
You have to just do it. You have to do the Sunday Race Club. I've done the Sunday Race Club, and it is totally different than anything on MyWhoosh. That's one thing. Brian's doing it. He's going to talk about his journey. He hasn't done one yet, but I'm going to be real clear. Like the excitement or the prestige that is in Sunday Race Club just blows everything out of comparison. There's no like apples to oranges or apples to apples or whatever in MyWhoosh. Same with like a high profile race in Zwift, right? That it's just like, hey, I got to get geeked up. I got to do my way in. I got all that stuff. That's Sunday Race Club. Like that. It's Sunday is the racing. Casual stuff, not so much. And there's a little people. There's a little attendance and all the other stuff. Let me finish my one thing where you're bringing up. What is it? It was. Now you're having bad experiences. Not you're a seasoned veteran. You know how to do it, but the first taste, because of sweat equity, like you just wanted to ride.
Yep. Now,
somebody that has an experience with Zwift and they're trying to leave Zwift and go to another platform and they have a bug, they're less likely to put up with that bug because there's something else to go and do without having to bug. Where Zwift had the benefit of not having really anyone else for people to just rage quit out of. So that's something that the other platforms need to have over leaving Zwift.
Well, one thing, Casey, in the time, we think, because I was 10 seconds like behind, and Casey was ahead or whatever, however it worked out. I think the timer goes off our local time, but the event is off the server time. So like if your computer clock's ahead, behind, or whatever, like because my gate, like the gate opened and I sat there for 10 seconds. Well, in Casey's aspect, it was like, oh, here, you know what I mean? You got 2 minutes up to go, and then that's time to go.
Yeah,
So
it was
that's something that I think
154 on the clock, and it was like, oh, go. Like I went back and even looked at the
Oh
replay, and
wow!
all three
so
events,
that's
my countdown clock was at 1:54, and it dropped off, and we went.
okay.
And we pulled it up after, and I pulled up like my system clock, and I Googled, you know, like the
time and day or whatever.
real time thing, and I was about 2 minutes off my Windows clock to online clock, and I clicked the button on my Windows PC to like sync the time or whatever, and I did another MyWhoosh event, and the gate opened at 0. So it's like it's doing all the countdown. And I also missed an event because of this, because it said I had 3.5 minutes till the event started. So I went into the pairing screen and messed around for just a couple seconds, and I came back out and went to join the event. And it's like, you can't, it started. And I'm like, well, I know I wasn't gone for 3 minutes, but I was like, oh, maybe it's like Indie Velo where it has that minute padding or something.
Yeah.
And now it's like, nope, that damn event started at 1:54. All of the timing for the events was based off of my system clock, except for the gate opens at the server system clock. And I was like, ooh,
and
that's an issue.
And Michael, when it happened to me, I restarted my computer, and it must have resynced the time because the couple events I've done after that have been spot on. So it's like it got a little off, and then once I restarted it, it synced right back into whatever world clock it goes off of.
In 5 or 10 seconds, I probably would have been like you, like, oh, it's just some weird hiccup or something, the server having to get revved up or whatever. But I mean, like, I was watching the clock, and then, you know, with still 1.5 minutes to go or 2 minutes to go, you're kind of like doing other things, get stuff ready, clicking on the fan, and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta go.
So it pulls from this, the event pulls from whatever the clock they have, their server clock, and your local time
on your screen
is tied to your local computer clock.
Yeah, that's what we're assuming.
And if you're not synced into like the, hey, take your location time, most computers and most devices now are set up for location, like location services. But yeah, that's a.
So I
don't know how to solve that. Besides having your clock set properly.
Yeah, and Zwift has a bug similar to that, because I don't have my system set to do the system clock like that, because with Zwift, when you would get to like April Fool's Day, stuff like that, if you were within 24 hours or so of that time, you could change your PC clock and get the Goofy bike. Or when the worlds used to be kind of date locked, you could change the date on your computer to Ride London instead of Watopia, to say, make Zwift to think it's Tuesday instead of Monday, you know, like, so my system has always been set up to where it doesn't automatically update the time, because I would change it to fool Zwift.
Can you fool Zwift to give Brian and Lee the update the day that it's released instead of
I have a hack for it. I do.
There is a way.
Never gotten it.
There is a way.
But see, the funny thing is like, I shouldn't have to, because on the forums, people have said, oh, well, if you do this hack, you get it. I shouldn't have to hack. It should just
look
right.
Yeah. And you get the, you know, I know Lee's been out there too. You get that pushback of, right, like, oh, it's good for this, it's good for that. Look, hey, like this last update we got this week, roll that thing out over 3 days. I don't care, because it doesn't mean anything. It didn't do anything. It's bug fixes, right? But you're opening roads, you're changing CDA in the game, you're doing stuff like that. Number one, you better have that crap tested. And when and I know, guys, we're still a little fish in the pond here, but people are out there trying to build the community for Zwift. Zwift is counting on all of these people to build this community for them, and streaming and things like that. And when guys like us take 5 days to get an update, we miss an opportunity to be one of the first ones out there sharing that Zwift information, right? Zwift is taking that opportunity away from us. I know, I forget which, I think it was the Climb portal I was so mad about, because they ended up slowing that one down to where it was Monday after the Tuesday release before some of us got that. And I'm like, this thing's been out for 6 days. As a streamer, if I was actually trying to build a big audience in that, like, I didn't get this thing for 6 days. How do I get to debut new content and make a big hype out of it when it's 6 days old?
Well, and that's like on the forum. Like I saw you posted a few hours after I did on that post. And that's sort of what I was trying to convey to Zwift and the Zwift forums was bug fixes, whatever, new content. Everyone should get brand new content at the exact same time, no matter what, you know, for streaming, whatever. It's just, we're all paying customers. Why can't we all get like, and I understand where the people are like, well, it's not a big deal. It's like I never logged in. It's just
but it is a big deal.
It is a big deal. Like you pay. I've been paying for since 2016. Why do I get content 5 days after everyone else?
In the grand scheme of world things, it is not a big thing. But in the world of like what you're really interested in, because and the thing is, if you have to you be fair, right? You have to be fair. So like Casey's having issues with the MyWhoosh stuff, and that if Zwift is having issues with MyWhoosh, you have the Zwift apologists come in and say, "Oh no, it's okay, whatever." Or what is it? It's just a game, or it's not a game. It's a training tool, or whatever that
it's a training app. You don't.
It's a training app. All that stuff. It's like no, but there's times where I'm like, I don't want to train. I want to do.
There's just been times
stuff.
like I go into work and I turn on YouTube and I just look. I'm like, oh, GP Llama's got a video of like brand new content. Cool. Like when shifting came out, like when the vert plays came out, I was like, awesome, virtual shift. I rushed home from work, fired up the computer, went to get the update and was like, I don't get the update.
Yeah, most of those updates are, in a week's time, these will be out. That's like, it's like even a week before it's even released when the videos are released of you watching new stuff. And it's like,
Casey's out with the cramps.
Oh, he got a cramp in his leg? Okay. Cramp in his leg.
He's back.
So MyWhoosh cramp. MyWhoosh cramp. He muted.
That was the good one. Dang.
Well, it's like anything in the world. If you pay for something, a subscription, it'd be like going to the gym where you pay monthly and they're like, hey, we got some brand new equipment, but we're phasing it out over 3 days. So random draw, this guy gets to use the equipment, but you don't for 3 days.
Right. The frustrating thing is like the gym analogy is a good one where it's like, hey, we've built this new pool and we're going to phase it out, phase it. It's a sweat equity because we complain about things and we try to relate them to other games, like the rage quitting with like MyWhoosh. If your match in World of Warcraft or whatever, an Apex Legends match or something like that didn't sync up and whatever, and you would just relaunch it and go to another match or change the game or go somewhere because you're just sitting there doing anything. Casey's pedaling, sweating. He's been waiting for 15 minutes. It's like this thing doesn't go off.
For example,
and you're like, man, I just want to ride. Yeah. I'm going to go to another game that lets me ride.
And that was exactly it, right? We just keep, when those things break, it was just like, I can always go back to Zwift, right? I can be frustrated with Zwift, but there's always something for me to do there. So it's just like, I get to that point where I'm not waiting another 30 minutes. I'm just going to Zwift.
Yeah. Well, like in video games, world firsts are a big thing. When everyone gets the content. So for example, like Lumo did a virtual Everesting on the grade. Well, I wouldn't have that opportunity because I got it 3 days after everyone. There could have been 50 virtual Everests on the grade before I got access to the grade.
Yeah, I know.
Well, like I would like to see something like, I've seen PUBG do this, right? Where you can go into Steam for PUBG and you can install PUBG test server. And a week before the big release is coming out, you can go into the test server and it's 95% of what's going to get released. And the streamers and everybody else is in there playing on the test servers, right? For a few days, they're picking out a few bugs, things are crashing, but that's the risk you take. And then a week later, it rolls out to everybody, right? Like something like that, I would rather do than this phased rollout when it's new content, right? Like let me at least choose to take that risk and go over that, or at least give me a button, right? Like update now. If you know the update's out there, right? Give me the button to just say update now. If I choose to ignore it and just log in, you don't update me for 3 days, that's fine. But let me make the choice to take the risk for the update. think the cramp is gone. I'm scared to pick up my leg.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the, what was it? So we talked about a lot of the Zwift ride last week. Or does anyone have anything else to talk about this sort of thing? Or
just with MyWhoosh, like I'm not going to import my levels just out of pure, even though I double dip.
What?
but
You're the double dipper. How are you
I
not importing
know.
your levels?
This is
Triple
the reason.
dipping.
There's nothing on level progression. You have no idea. And I'm so curious about it because I've seen guys before the importing, guys like Casey and I had like 300 more kilometers than him, and we're one level apart. Barney was level, I think 16 or something, and I had 200 more kilometers than him, and I was level 17 or something like that. It was like so similar, so bizarre. I've seen people with like 200 kilometers and level 21, and this is before. So I'm testing just pure random
Science.
curiosity. Yeah.
Science.
I honestly think it's climbing gives you more XP in MyWhoosh because I did some hilly route and I went up half a level on the little thing. Now there is no numbers, like you can't see your progression, just that little bar that I've found yet. But yeah, just pure
interest. Pure
interest. That's it.
Scientific exploration.
Yeah. And MyWhoosh does let you double dip. I was talking with Scott. Now Barney might be different because he is doing the premium events and has dual recording. But MyWhoosh, when you finish an event, when your event screen comes up, it auto uploads, and then you keep riding. It makes a separate file, so you get two.
It locks in the event fit file for you. That's an automatic
thing. And then if I ride,
Okay.
And today I learned I kept riding. Like I wanted an hour and a half, 2 hours of zone 2 or just a ride. And I was doing zone 2 and I don't know the time frame. My event finished at 40 minutes. And at 1 hour and 25 minutes, popped up, said, hey, this event's about to close. Something, you'll be taken back to the home screen. So I thought, okay, I'm going to ride to the end and it'll save my ride and go back. No, you just flat out cuts off the ride or you have no existence of that ride. So it might be best if you just want to ride, end the event, go back to the menu, come back. Because if you're after a badge or whatever, you don't get it. You have to do free ride only. Because that was what I was testing. I did a race. I've never done the course before. And then I free rode it after the race and I didn't get credit. You have to purely do a free ride.
I think it's a better way. I just think that we're ingrained to have it be like Strava and Zwift and everything else.
Right.
Where like if you start your computer and you go warm up, then you go on the start line, and I did it like a 4-hour race, and then I ride back to my truck. That's all included in my fit file. But if that crashes and it doesn't exist, then it's like what then it did it exist or whatever. That's not what I'm trying to talk about. So, it's what I'm saying is people sometimes they need to save their event, and MyWhoosh is doing that as a like these things need to these sort of competitive races need to be make sure that the fit file is locked into the event so that they can see what's going on and have whatever you competed in that event is locked in.
Yeah.
So and what's interesting.
Go ahead.
I would say what's interesting today is I rode a little bit in an event after I crossed the finish line. So I was going to look because there's two activities listed in MyWhoosh for that event for me, right? There's the one that ended at the end of the event, and there's the one that includes the riding after the finish line. But only one got uploaded to Strava, and the one on Strava stops at the finish line. Like it stops at my sprint to the line, and that's it. So if I want the extra miles in my training logs and things like that, I'm going to have to go get that other fit file and manually put it up somewhere and flip-flop them.
Or just immediately leave that event and go do go do a free ride, which is
basically what Indy Velo is doing, right? Indy Velo stops you at the line, right? You keep riding.
No, you can keep riding. You can keep riding. It does it. It's like Zwift. It's like
you're in a separate world. Like Indy Velo takes you to a separate just race server.
I think
Yeah.
it was
So once
RGT that stopped you, right? Like
Yes,
you
RGT
finished
was,
at
yeah.
the
Because you
finish
came to a
line.
stop.
Ruby did it
RGT,
really
you came to
well.
a stop. Like any, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead. Ruby.
Well, like Ruby, you would be on your little trainer at the start of the race. That was counted as warm up, and it actually saved a fit file called warm up. And then the moment the timer hit 0, it would start a new fit file,
Yeah,
and that was your
that's cool.
race. And then the moment you crossed the finish line, it stopped that fit file, and then you had a cooldown fit file. So when you looked on Strava, it would say, race warm up, race cooldown.
That's
and
nice.
it would have just the race as a fit file, which I don't think anyone's doing, which was really neat. And Ruby's been doing that since like the beginning, which I kind of appreciated.
But Casey's right about RGT, like because everyone just came to a complete stop at the end of an event, and you didn't move anymore. So if you wanted to see visual movement, you had to leave the event.
My last MyWhoosh event before we go over to the Zwift ride, because I do want to talk about that. My other thing today that like, okay, I have 100,000 kilometers on indoor riding, right? Like I'm experienced, and I was trying to pair my dual recording, and I was unplugging dongles, and I was doing all this, and I'm like, my Osceomas are not coming up under Bluetooth. This makes no sense. And then I think Brian, you said, oh, Ant Plus doesn't work for duals, so I couldn't do Ant Plus. And I'm like, all I see is my direct connect to my trainer, which was my primary, and then another Bluetooth thing was popping up that just said power like 287, but my power meter is 14,899. Yeah. My power meter is 14,899. That it's not 200 and whatever. So I was like, oh, it's picking up something off my treadmill or something like that. Well, finally, after like 15 minutes and trying this 3 or 4 times, I clicked on the one that was listed there, that power 287, and clicked pair. And after it paired it, it said Osceoma 14,899.
Oh.
I was like, are you freaking kidding me? It's been there the whole time. But what it was showing me on the screen wasn't the same Ant ID or the make model. If it would have said Favero, Osceoma, anything, I would have known. So then I had to go open Zwift, and I'm like, what does Zwift tell me on the pairing screen? And Zwift on the pairing screen for Bluetooth says Osceoma 14,899. And I was like, like, this is simple. It's little things like that I was just like, oh, you're killing me here.
Maybe it doesn't know it on your profile yet, and so it had to identify it as the whatever BLE antenna number or whatever license, because I don't remember my first connection of my Wahoo Speedplay pedals, because when I finally had that connected, it shows up, it says PowerLink pedals all the time. So once it sees it now the test is go back in and see if it remembers. Will it save it? So, all right.
So that's just little stuff.
That was good little stuff.
Yeah, and I missed the first ride on the World Championship course because I'm a big dumb animal and wrongly converted the time from UTC, whatever it said, to Eastern Standard Time.
You were going to compete in it?
I was just going to ride it just for the show, and because I did it, it was going to start at like 4 a.m. So I was going to get up and do it at 4 a.m. Well, here it was 6 a.m. Like I don't know what I just did it wrong. So I didn't get to see it. And I'd already locked into that early time, and I couldn't get the late time, which I don't even know if I could have been able to get to it anyway. But yeah, so I know Barney, I believe he streamed it. I think I caught the end of it. So
there's a few of them out there. Zach Nair was in it.
I didn't see any videos of it.
Friend of the show, Tom Thrall was in it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to actually go search and find that because I'm kind of curious about the event. So hopefully I can find a stream of it somewhere on YouTube.
There was some serious racing going on in that race. The one that I watched, the Barney and Zach Nair and
I caught the end of Barney's. So I'll have to go.
Oh man, that was like a Sunday race club in the middle of the week. That's what it seemed like. I think it seems like people are ramping up for the World Championships, like the people that are competing for it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, a shout out. Hold on. Before we get to the Zwift ride, Canadian qualifiers. Lee, you have some Canadian news for us? Friend of the show. God, I forgot his name already. You're muted, buddy.
I was going to say Josh Peacock.
Josh Peacock, friend of the show.
So Canadian the Canadian, they're having the Canadian National Worlds selection qualifier races.
Yeah.
And originally I was pumped because I was like, man, it's middle of summer. Who's going to show up to qualifying races? Because they're taking the top 7 men, until I read the rules and was like, no, it's actually a committee making
Oh,
the selection. So you can't
based
default
on their
by
performance.
Yeah. So what happens too, it says if
Okay.
only 7 people show up, you have to be in the top half of the field to be chosen. So for me to just sneak in on 7th, there have to be 14 people. And if there's 14 people, I'm not going to come 7th.
You're
So
going to compete, right? You're competing, right?
actually, I can't. I was looking, I don't have a UCI license.
You
This
can get those for
particular
free.
race requires a UCI license. If I can wrangle it without paying any additional money, then
Oh,
totally. But the first race is on the 17th. So there's actually,
wait. Is it a UCI license or a UCI number?
it says license in the actual race Bible here. So on July 3rd, there's a test event
Okay.
at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. July 13th, there's test event number 2. And then July 17th is race qualifier number 1. July 27th is race qualifier number 2. So
Okay.
there's 2 races to qualify. It's a points race. So whoever has points, but I was looking though, reading the rules. So there's 150 riders. September 6th is the UCI World Championship semifinal, where Canada has been allotted 7 men, 5 women for this race. I think there's 150 riders per gender in total. They're paring the World Championship down to 20 people. So on September 6th
What?
is the semifinal qualifier, where they have 150 people. And then October 26th is the actual World Championship. They're only bringing the top 20 from the semifinals to the Worlds.
That is awesome. I'm into that. I know it's going to piss a lot of people off, but I'm actually really into it because it is going to be so
Some
exciting to
countries
watch.
might not actually get to make it to the Worlds if they're only taking 20.
Probably not. No, yeah, you have to be on
Or
for a
some countries could
while.
have all 7 of their men make it to Worlds. Could you imagine? Like Cycling USA sends a gangbuster team and all 7 Cycling USA
Hey.
guys make it, and that's 7 of 20? Like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's innovation. I mean, that's just a different way to go. That's for me. It's just hearing it. I'm seeing it as something like we're trying to do something different than just regular road racing or regular Olympic style or world championship style racing. We're creating this as like a sport on its own, but it has the makings of cycling and the training and stuff. But the scoring and the competition is trying to be as unique as possible.
But it's like coming up a pyramid, right? Like you gotta qualify. Like for you, Lee, you gotta qualify in Canada first. Then you're in this big pool, right? And then I think it builds the hype too, right?
Yeah,
It's,
totally
they're
does.
they're getting more exposure out of it. They're getting more people involved because it's broader at the beginning, but they're ramping it up. I think it's a good idea.
That qualifying race, the semifinals on September 6th, will be an amazing race to watch.
Yeah, my daughter is.
Where they go from 150 down to 20, like that will be, because there's going to be some tears on that one. Like there's going to be people who are just
serious.
outside.
I'm laughing because I'm laughing because of the fluke, not because of the serious people's dreams of being a world championship. Yeah, crushed. But
yeah,
Casey brings up a great point, and I love the movie Rad, and that is like Crew Jones qualifying for the BMX for Hell Track. Cochrane, another Canadian reference there. Cochrane, Alberta. Him trying to qualify and being like an outsider, not sponsored. This is what it is. It's like, hey, you have to do it from your. I like it. I like it. It's going to create some great drama. Like the Tour de France stage yesterday was amazing. I watched it.
That was awesome.
It was so awesome. Spoiler alert. It was just, you're just like hoping that they're not going to get caught, and they didn't get caught. And you're just like, oh. So,
I was so mad, and I understand why they let Romain Bardet win, but that dude was in a break for 190 kilometers. Let the guy win. He'll very low chance he'll ever win a stage again.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
got that. But
Oh,
yes, he's the
man.
team leader. He's the French guy. Gets on the thing. Blah blah
Yes,
blah.
I know.
There,
But man.
did you see him pulling up that climb? That like the second to last climb or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Dude, he was so just spewing out. He was doing like a full time for whatever.
Oh.
It was just amazing they didn't get caught. Right. Okay.
Oh, that was
For the audio only audience, we have the important dates. This is from Cycling Canada. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the thing that Lee just said, but July 3rd is the test event. They have another test event on the 13th. Qualifier 1, qualifier 2, then the semifinal, which is 150 rider. See, this is the thing: does USA Cycling have this out yet? Do any other national governing bodies have this information available to their riders? I haven't seen anything.
Is it actually says Cycling Canada has been allotted 7 men and 5 women positions for the semifinal. So does other countries maybe get more allocation or less allocation? That would be interesting to find out.
You know why it goes down to 20 riders?
Well, they're
in
flying
person.
everyone
You
in.
catch that? It's in person.
Yeah. They're flying all 20 people into MyWhoosh headquarters.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because it's there to make sure everything's good to go, which is the first for this event. Yes. Right. They have never had a in-person World Championships. When was the first World Championships? The virtual world or the whatever esports?
Yeah, I don't think they've ever done this in person. They did the the Olympic trial thing that Barney did.
The Olympic
in
Games
person.
thing. That was in person.
We did a bunch of the CVR World Cups in person. We did some of the Zwift eCrit stuff in person. Zwift Kiss eCrit. And then there was a couple other Zwift events that were in person, but not very many, especially since COVID. They really haven't done much.
But the UCI Esports World Championships.
I don't think the UCI one was ever live. No,
that first one was 2020, right? Was it won by Jason Osborne, the guy who's on Alpecin Deceuninck now, or Alpecin? Yeah, right. Isn't he the guy who won the Zwift KOM? He was the rower, the German. He's the German kid that was like a rower out of nowhere. And that was 2020, right? And that was virtual. And that was when the UCI is, yes, we're doing this. We're giving virtual bans to people. 2020, right?
It
Then we had
sounds
2021,
right.
or was it 2021? 2021 was the first one. How many have there been? There's been. This will be the fourth one. So there's 3.
It would have been 2020. Well, no,
2020, because the woman who won this the previous year, she won twice, so she's a back-to-back winner. Then it was the guy who did the breakaway. He was the Danish guy. He broke away and did so that was the 3-event version of it. That was the last time they did it. The reason why it's throwing me off is because it's so later in the season. No, it wasn't Osborne. It was the Danish kid who's the current one, right?
The first year, Barney's saying the first year was a bunch of IRL pros too, I think.
Well, there was that one where the guy had he was like level 15 in Zwift and he won the worlds and everyone was outraged.
Right. But this is the first one where it's in person. That's why I was asking, like a UCI one. You did a bunch of events that you just named them off, but this is the first time they're going to bring everyone in. Yeah. So they're giving the people the opportunity. They're lowering the field because of logistics. But if they didn't do the in-person thing, do you think the field would be better at 20, or would you think it would be better at like 150, or like it normally is for the finals?
20 is a very small field. I would personally like to see more, but probably logistics of them flying everyone.
No, not so. There's a hypothetical.
I'd rather see it.
20 is it virtual 20 final?
20 is a better race. 20 is a better race.
Yeah.
20 is a better race because people are going to be more apt to get away. Like out of 150, you're going to have somebody that's too antsy, that's covering a move, that sort of thing, that like you get into that blob mentality. When you get down to 20, you got that chance of striking a match and everybody looks at everybody else because they're like, there's only 19 of us. I'm not going to burn the match. And all of a sudden the move's gone, kind of thing, which I think wasn't it. Was it Vine that won the one that kind of that way? I mean, a lot of these have been won that way where it's like this, there's no way this guy's going to hold this off. And he does, right? Because everybody's kind of like,
that was the guy last year.
The Zwift blob,
that was the guy
right?
last year.
Just, yeah.
He rode away on that Scotland course, and he just did huge numbers the whole time, and people were looking around. I think Barney was in that final. James Barnes, everybody. So like a lot of people were like, hey, do I want to chase and give up my opportunity to bring somebody back? That's the thing, it's the infighting on the chase. So I don't know, I'm kind of excited to this. That's pretty cool.
Like I say, I think having multiple races makes it exciting because I'm sure other countries will be having qualifier racing as well, which should be all streamed, and
we got to get Josh
shown live. On. I think so.
We got to get him on right before this. Let's get him 17th. On. Okay, let's do it after the test event.
Yeah,
so that he can focus on the qualifiers. But like, hey, how did the test events go? Here we go. Hey, we're producing the show on the air. we're gonna hit him up. All right, there we go. Okay, that'd be cool. Test events. And what do we have any idea what the test event is?
Doesn't say. Just says test event. So I'll find that out. I'm sure it's probably on their Discord because they've been talking about it there.
So they did test events for the Canada versus the world, or it wasn't Canada versus the world or world versus Canada, whatever it was. And those were fun, especially for an old guy like me and Scott Cunningham.
I really liked that format. It was fun. It was fun. I'm not really huge into the racing side of things, but I went,
I might be, if they're open to everybody, if they want more people to race in the test events, I think we should start promoting those. July 3rd, which is next weekend.
Yes.
No,
wait, like no, a few days, 4 days.
It's
get your MyWhoosh updated. Oh, dude, is that event live already? Casey, you got your MyWhoosh open still?
No.
Can you go? Oh, Oh. All right, maybe we're doing a test event, and then the 13th is the following week, right? Yeah, following Saturday. So there's a next Wednesday, and then the 13th. So we need to have Josh on the 14th. There we go. Produce it. Producer Lee, hit up your dude in Canada.
It doesn't mention anything about the test events on Cycling Canada's Discord page.
Okay, well.
Yeah, in the app, there's nothing either.
I'll ask the question.
Okay. There we go. All right, we're doing Zwift Ride for Casey, but quick question before we get to Zwift Ride. I saw something about Zwift Labs has a new thing. The race ranking. That's what it was.
We need to talk about that. Yeah,
we need to talk about that. Let's do that. Let's touch on the ride really quick for Casey and for all those people that maybe have seen it. Or is it out yet? Is it even out yet?
It is. It shipped this week. Yeah, it went out this week. I think started shipping. I didn't have a lot to add to the ride. I just listened to you guys earlier today from last week, and the only thing that you guys were talking about, like Zwift opening up the protocol, that kind of thing, right? Like they're not going to do it, guys. I don't think they're going to do it.
I agree.
They might. I don't think they're going to do it.
Saying it to be nice, but it's like I don't think they're going to.
What needs to happen is the virtual shifting needs to not be part of the software. It needs to be shifters that talk to the trainer, right? Not to the software. The shifters need to be tax shifters that integrate with the Neo, and all the Neo is getting from Zwift is the grade, and it does the shifting all in the, it needs to be a package with your trainer, not with your software. Zwift is making it proprietary to them because they can, and they were the first ones out the door. But what the trainer companies need to do is they need to come out with shifters that talk directly to the trainer to do virtual shifting. Don't make it part of the software.
I'm on board with that. How does a trainer company make a shifter button for a non-traditional bike that already has shifting. So why would a trainer company go, hey, we'll take over your shifting when you already have a Shimano or a SRAM or a Campionolo shifter on your bike? Like why would they do that?
I think it comes down to the same reason why the Zwift Ride is a thing, right? They can start selling it as a package, right? They can sell a frame with virtual shifting and a crankset. There's no cassette, there's no brakes, there's no, like they can make it's the dumbed down smart bike, right? But what do you lose out of it? It's still a solid frame, it's a solid platform, it's a trainer that you trust. I kind of look at it as like
I'm with you on it should be hardware or whatever local shifting.
Yeah.
But I think it should be a partnership with the electronic Grupos, right? So like SRAM should be able to go into your thing, just like you can put a SRAM cassette and a Shimano cassette on your Tax or on your Wahoo trainer. You should be able to use like Lee brought this up, I think when we were talking about it last week or whenever it was, about how the blips or the Shimano, the buttons that you can change your screen on your computer, like that should be able to go, hey, do you want to use this to control your shifting, your virtual shifting on your trainer?
Yeah, and I was thinking about that, but the problem is when you're hitting that shifter to shift, it's actually changing your cassette. You got to pick one or the other. You need a physical shift or you need a virtual shift. Right now, your SRAM button does a physical shift. You have to have a way to shut off the physical switch. So like SRAM would have to build something in there to like, you'd have to be changing a button, right? Like you'd have to parity your SRAM.
Yeah,
maybe that would work.
Yeah.
You'd have to open up a SRAM app and say, I'm riding indoors, so don't move my derailleur, but tell Zwift or tell my trainer to shift.
That's what I'm saying is that you have the ability to shift.
You have the buttons.
You have the buttons, but you're not actually going up and down the block, right? You are just doing it virtually. So you go into the sort of the Zwift Ride center line, like the line of the chain is, so your lower friction, it's better for you, which is what Lee wants to set up on his own. He's like, I have a bike, I would love to do that, and then have virtual shifting, but you just have a regular traditional bike. Like I could do virtual shifting. I don't have the one single like thing where the chain sits in the middle. When I do my virtual shifting on Zwift, I just leave it in the center of the cassette and I do my virtual shifting. I can shift if I want to. That's where it's like, hey, you could have a real bike and have virtual shifting that's going to your trainer. And I'm on board. Somebody's got to decide who wants to do it. And I don't think the trainer company is going to do it because it doesn't really help them. But it may be a bridge of the software from the hardware shifters to the trainer company. So it's hey, SRAM, we're going to support SRAM electronic conversation with the trainer versus going to the software, which I agree with you. It shouldn't be a software thing.
I think the only thing with like the SRAM Shimano thing is I get that it would work, but is it cost productive for them to do it? I mean,
no. Totally not.
Most people that have that level of shifting are perfectly content with how their bikes are shifting, and they want to ride their bike with their shifters and all that, right? I don't have anything electronic. Hell, I've only got one bike that's 11 speed. The rest are 10 speed, right? Like, I'm not going to go buy an electronic group set to do that.
I'm out on this. But I think for innovation, it's like I have a Edge 1000. I have devices that don't even connect to it anymore, so I'm looking to upgrade. If the features then start to come in line, you're like, oh, I would upgrade to electronic Grupo on my normal bike because it adds this. That would be a reason where, oh, okay, we can add this if it's easy. It's not a selling point, really. It's just a +1 or a plus whatever. Yeah.
I think the next level to it would be platform agnostic shifting, which would mean the shifters have to talk to the trainer.
Totally agree.
That's it. Yeah. Shifters have to talk to the trainer.
Totally. Did you like the look of it?
Yeah, I don't have any problems with it. Like they're saying it was heavy. People were questioning, oh, is it going to be sturdy?
It looks really sturdy.
Just going to be just as sturdy as your bike on a trainer, right? I mean, it's the same platform. And GP Llama said the thing's like a tank, so it's going to be heavier than a regular bike.
It's not about it being heavy. It's just that one piece. Well, it is that foot thing we talked about last week but that looks so like the rigidness of like not a fork or whatever, but like just a solid, it looks like a 2x4 just stuck into the ground, or like a fence post.
If anybody's ridden a smart bike versus a bike frame, this is the one thing that I looked at and I was like, because one thing I had a hard time adjusting back to the regular bike from the stages was on the stages, the handlebars didn't turn. And now on the bike, I'm always turning right about 20 degrees all the time. And then my front wheel ends up walking over. And then I have to, if you watch me on stream, I kind of hop it back over. And like, I'm like, I want those rigid bars again. Like for whatever reason, I liked the rigid bars.
Well,
that's why I like the kicker climb. It makes
if you let like 6-7 years worth of if you let 6-7 years worth of sweat get on your headset bearings
to lock it up,
it's locked in. Mine has been locked in for probably 2 years now, hasn't moved. So that's one way to fix it. Just let the sweat go for it, and there's the bearings are weld together.
All right, any more on the Zwift ride? Casey likes it, but
it's good.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's I get it. Like we talked. I think we went in depth with last week.
Yeah.
So, all right, Zwift Labs.
You can't build your own bike for what Zwift is going to be selling that bike for.
It's cheaper than I thought it would be. Yeah. As a package.
Like when I talked about having a frame, like I do have a old bike hanging on the wall, but when I start adding in how to make it single speed, I'm like, it's going to be the same price as Zwift Ride. And then it's an old ass bike from my wall. Like I may as well just buy a Zwift Ride.
Yeah. Another random note that I noticed today while someone was on my stream asking about getting into Zwift, and I said, hey, get the Kicker Core. Perfect. If you're looking for something cheap, I pulled it up. If you go to Kicker or Wahoo's website, you cannot buy the Kicker Core without the $150 Zwift membership. You can go to like REI or whatever online seller and get a core for $500. So I think it's kind of wild, the partnership that's like, if I'm going to buy a core, I have to buy it. There is no option unless you buy a reconditioned core for $300.
So you have to go to you got to go to a retailer to not get the Zwift package.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Just so probably that was a lawsuit thing where Zwift was like, any trainer you sell on wahoo.com has to come with Zwift.
It's wahoofitness.com.
It's the
I don't know if wahoo.com is something else,
probably a fish website.
I don't know how it is. Yeah, I don't know how it. No, I think they're originally like they're like a
dock
boat
company.
Yeah, dock company.
They made docks.
Whatever.
Wahoo, I believe is a fish.
Wahoo.co.ca or whatever you guys have up in Canada.
.ca.
I want to.
All right. So we derailed somebody's point. Brian, what was your point?
Oh, I was just talking about the partnership with Zwift and Wahoo.
Okay.
Like you can't, like say if you wanted the $500 trainer, you had $500, you're buying a trainer, you know what I mean? You have to get that.
That's kind of good. If you're not getting it, if you're the first one getting it, right? And you don't know what you're really doing. Like, I don't know the Wahoo, like there was the system, but a system is sort of, it still exists. But I don't know if people use it very often, and it's not marketed a lot. But I have Zwift. I can jump on. What is that? Okay, cool. That's what it is. It goes back to this. And this is the thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the Zwift Labs. Peloton, right? So we've been having some more Peloton discussions, and I brought this up in Casey's stream a while ago, and I think it ruffled some feathers, where I was saying that the ecosystem was like Peloton, and you thought it was like I was saying that it was like a spin class Peloton sort of thing. But I think Zwift is becoming more and more like Peloton, and Peloton is becoming more and more like Zwift, because or Peloton has a game now.
Yeah,
you can play.
Yeah. I think that premium side of Peloton is starting to try to dabble into the competitive side, not the spin class side. Yeah.
That Sydney, who is my go-to person
She's our correspondent.
Yeah. She said that they are actively looking for the road cyclist people to get into that part of it. So they, especially the instructors. So that's why Christian Vanderbilt and some of these others
I
are.
looked into it for my mom. Actually, I've been
Oh,
been looking at Peloton for my mom because she has the knee. She has like bone on bone knee thing. She's not a 38-year-old person like you. She's a 76-year-old woman.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I'll set up a DVD player, and she has this, like old fan, those arm spinning fan thing. And I'm like, what if I just talk her into getting this Peloton so she can have something where it's like, just hop on, get her workout in, do the thing after surgery and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've been looking at it. So maybe I need to talk to Sydney.
So my dad's a recumbent rider. My mom and dad have my first kicker. My dad bought a cheap recumbent frame that has nothing on it other than a rear derailleur and a friction shifter. And they ride full gas on that thing all the time. Like the front wheel skewer is mounted to a piece of plywood. It's one of the big laid out recumbents where your feet are up at about your waist. And my mom rides full gas on that a couple times a week on an Apple, Apple TV thing.
The thing for me, and I think I talked about this last week, was that lifting your leg over the ride, the Zwift ride, is a lot for people. A lot of people don't, like most like whatever town bikes, like the Dutch bikes or whatever. You just kind of just lift your leg over the bottom bracket, and you're like, you just sit in and you That's my mom. I'm not getting her the Zwift ride.
Right.
There's no way she's getting over that that top tube.
If weight's not a factor, why does it need a top tube? Like, why don't you build the dang thing like a V and just beef it up enough that it's sturdy? Why do you? I mean, I got to tell you, I cramp up lifting my leg over my top tube too. Yeah. I'd take a step through bike inside.
We know cramps around here on this show. We definitely know about cramps. So Brian actually brought up something offline after the last week's show. You had that other frame Kickstarter thing that you wanted to touch on too. Maybe Casey knows about it too, but
because
the cramping over the top tube is not fun.
You're scared to get off the bike.
But it has a step through, and it says in the detail, it's called the Caveworks Rivet Single Speed.
There we go. Casey Lee got it up on the screen.
Right. It says it's designed to work seamlessly with virtual shifting enabled smart trainers or with most software on erg mode.
Look at the shadow of the trainer.
He's a streamer.
This is exactly what Lee was talking about that we want to build, right? Put some Zwift plays on that and let's go.
This guy streams. He's been working on this. I've seen Caveworks on Twitch. Go to twitch.tv/Caveworks. I seen this guy stream, and he's like, I've been working on this thing. This guy's, he's been working on this.
There's a couple things about this bike, if you look closely, that are easier to adjust, where the Zwift, if you have multiple riders, the Zwift ride needs a wrench. Here you got a normal quick release, and look for the handlebar, there's just a knob.
Oh wait, the Zwift ride has a wrench for that adjustment.
Yeah, you got to use a wrench.
They're not like a spin bike at a gym where everyone's.
No, they're not like a quick release. It comes with the wrench, but it's a little Allen wrench that's magnetic and
magnetically. Okay, but I was thinking like the other adjustments would be. I thought that was for
there's a quick release for the height, and then a knob here for the reach.
So
here we go. Low top tube, easy to stand over.
But there's like the fore and aft of the saddle. That's like you have to have your own stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that though on the Zwift bike was the same way though. That was the one thing on the Zwift bike for fitting that I was like,
Oh, it doesn't have that on the Zwift bike. Okay. So
your only seat fore and aft setting on a Zwift bike is the seat rails. And it may be a seat that has longer rails than most, but it doesn't have like a big slider like a spin bike does or like my Stages indoor bike did. It doesn't have a big slider on the seat post to move. It does on the bars, but not on the seat post.
Man, look at that reel derailleur.
Well, that's just a single speed tensioner.
Yeah, it's a single speed tensioner. I actually keep one of those in my bike bag on gravel rides. So if I rip one derailleur off or break a derailleur cage, I can put that on there and get back single speed.
Maybe we have this dude come on. He's a streamer.
He doesn't have any
VODs.
Well, no, wait. Yesterday.
He's got one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yesterday than last
for
year.
pre-order.
Yeah.
Cave Works, Rivet single speed. Okay, cool.
Oh, and actually, if you look, I was reading the description. It's kicker climb compatible.
Yeah,
Kicker
I thought I
climb.
read that.
That's that. Look, it's probably those middle. See that middle
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about last time.
That's the kicker climb.
You can put it in between those
axle.
forks.
So that's
then
some
it lifts
sort
it.
of industry standard skewer dimension in there where it'll drop onto the climb.
Yeah, if it's wide enough, he probably made it wide enough so you can fit it around a kicker climb, because it's like standard forks, because the kicker climb fits in between.
And he plans on selling a geared version as well. There's the geared version.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, right on.
So you could just build, an indoor bike.
Yeah. We got competition. There you go. Look at that. Caveworks. Check it out. What's the website? Let's give a shout out to the website. What is it?
Just caveworks.co.
Right on. All right. Let's get into the
be interesting to know what this one actually is worth, because that'll be competition.
I'm on the show right now, Gabrielle.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
But we got to get to the Zwift racing
special guest, my wife, Gabrielle.
Yeah.
Gabriella.
We should have a BK story time, because that was the best on stream, when she just told embarrassing stories about you.
Oh, yeah, great.
We do have to talk Zwift racing, though. The Zwift race points.
Let's get into it. All right. Zwift racing. Who wants to take it?
I'll let me kick us off here. What it is. So everybody's got a race score now. You can go out there and find it. And at first I'm like, oh, what's our score? I always compare myself to Brian. Brian and I are really close. Brian White and I are really close in power and competitiveness and the bees and that sort of thing. So it's like, why do we have these different scores that we do? We have similar results kind of thing. But then you go back and read. Right now, no one has competed in a Zwift points event. So everyone's score is preset and seeded based on 30-second and 10-minute power. So my assumption is that your 90-day 30-second, because everything else in Zwift is based on 90 days with your Z map and your Z FTP. So critical power 30 seconds, critical power 600 seconds or 10 minutes. That's what you're seeded at. And then once you compete in Zwift rank events, you will factor up or down based on your results with your competitors. So what we were kind of talking about on my stream earlier today, this is my opinion, or this is what I think Zwift is doing, but it's not really clear. Somebody was saying, like, I think Lumo and I were talking about it. Lumo's got a really high score right now, and Lumo's not necessarily the high-end racer, right? Like, he just doesn't do a lot of racing. So Lumo's likely to have his score drop if he starts competing. We're like, Brian White and I are liable to have our scores go up because we generally outperform our power, where somebody like Lumo usually underperforms his power curve because he just doesn't care about the racecraft that much. But what we were talking about was the degradation over time. If you stop doing the races, how do you degrade? And I think you will degrade back to your power baseline. So for Lumo, if he did poor in races and brought his scores down, as he degrades, his score will come back up because of his power. And if Brian White and I bring our scores up and then stop racing, we will degrade down back to our power number. And I think that's the way it should be. And this is my reasoning why is we have a very large pool of riders here, right? Thousands and thousands and thousands of racers. If everybody stops racing for 60 days, you're always going to have the new racer that's power, that's strong. And they're always going to be blowing up the low categories if they don't have a baseline based on power. And I think BK and I and a lot of us have talked about this over time when it's like we need results-based categorization, and we all agree on that. But I kept saying it needs to be a hybrid. It has got to be a combination of power and results, because Otherwise, if you do it like outdoor racing, think of Cat 5 or Cat 4, you're always going to have the guy on the way up blowing up the races. You're always going to have somebody in the DCAT race that has a 350 FTP that just hasn't raced in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever. And you're never going to have a fun race in a lower category if you don't at least set a baseline on power. So that's kind of my thing that we were talking about today. So races start tomorrow, right, guys? Races start tomorrow.
So this starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
Point races.
The point,
everything is a point race, or is it
be
indicated in the game?
Yeah, you can tell by the events whether they're points or not.
Okay.
I think they're all under the Zwift Labs group, club, whatever. But I think you can still capture them off the public events thing.
I'm looking for it right now to see if they are.
I'm 473.75.
You're a what?
473.75.
You're a sandbagger. You have not done any hard efforts on Zwift in a while.
No, I haven't done.
You don't have a good 10-minute. So I'm a 606.
And I'm just showing my screen. I'm 381.
So I looked on the Zwift Insider article on it. Zwift went back to the drawing board, bringing community Zwifter and race ranking guru Tim Hansen of ZwiftRacing.app in as a consultant. So they didn't adopt the ZwiftRacing.app thing?
No.
So this is
just
for somebody
thing within Zwift.
This is the points. No, wait, this is racing score, which is not the points thing that we used to have on Zwift Power, or this is
it's not what we used to. Honestly, we don't know. We don't know what the Zwift Power ranking used to be. Well, I think it was strictly ELO. It had nothing to do with power. Now, the Zwift Racing, I don't think we know the secret to that sauce, so I don't know how close this is to Zwift Racer ranking.
Click the little I. It'll take you to a new tab, but it'll give you the Zwift Labs Racing Score FAQ. Maybe we can look at that. But yeah, we're bringing it up because we need it, one, but we also hopefully know that it's going to be better. Here we go. So you read this, Casey. You just break this down for us, or you didn't know that this FAQ
I didn't read this in great detail. No. I did read the Zwift Insider summary as far as it is seeded based on power. And then I was making the assumption that as you degrade results, as your results get older and you're not racing anymore, that you are going to drift towards your seeding, not necessarily the bottom. You don't degrade to the bottom of Zwift Racer rankings. I believe you are going to degrade to your power-based seeding number. So if you've underperformed, you're actually going to degrade to a higher category. And if you overperform your traditional power, you're going to degrade down. But I think if you're fully degraded, you're still going to be seeded based on your power.
And this is not categories.
It's a number, and then the events are broken based on ranges of scores, and they're using all 5 pins. So you have 5 divisions now instead of 4. So you naturally get a finer break.
So this is in addition to categories, not replacing categories.
Well, when you join an event, you're still going to look like an A, B, C, D, or an E, right? Because I have to join the second pin. So when I join the race, it's going to say B next to my name, but that's not the same as what B meant last week, right? But I'm in the B pin because of my ranks, my score.
So basically, it's a ladder system. When they explain it this way, they're just using your recent data because they don't have enough people racing against each other. But basically, it says here, if you finish a race against higher scored people, you will move up more than if you finish high against low ranked people.
So this doesn't solve the category problem?
It does.
Eventually it will.
It does, because actually, if you go look, like tomorrow's lunchtime Tour of France events, I think they're expecting so many people to turn out for him.
Yeah,
They actually didn't make a single event. They made 2 events that started at the exact same time, and it's 10 categories. So
Okay.
it's like the first event is 1,000 to 700, 700 to 600, 600 to 500,
Oh, okay.
500 to
I got it.
400, and then
Okay.
the second event is so like what would be a traditional B is spread across like 3 categories. Like
Yeah.
Brian White is the A category of the low section, and I'm the D
Yeah.
category of the high section because we're about 150 points apart. There's actually a full category between Brian and I in that event.
Yeah,
Okay.
Like,
I'm with bath salts, so I can't
Yeah.
wait. I hope they race with him. I kick his butt.
So Brian's with bath salts 2 categories below me, and
Yeah.
Ned Bowen, friend of the show, somebody we race against all the time in Bs, right? Draft racer, E. Chardon in chat, right? Ned is 2 categories above me, and him and I race against each other all the time in Bs. He can out sprint
Yeah.
me, but I can drop him before the end of a race sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah.
but he
I've
can
raced
always
with
out
Ned a lot.
sprint me. But he's a couple
Okay.
levels above me, but he's still 2 categories off the top.
It'll probably take a few months before it kind of equalizes and becomes like a true ladder system and people are grouped where they're supposed to be.
What I think is going to be good about it, they said, like, we're going to start with these separations, right? Like it's like 1,000 to 750 in the first group, and then 750 to 520 in the second group or something like that. But they're like, based on how it goes, we can change that. And it looks like they can change that in any event at any time on event setup. So you could have different race organizers in there that like split the groups, right? Like some of them are doing now, where to me, that's the biggest thing with racing, right? If you're forever a low B, it's miserable to race. But if you're forever a high B, it's all kinds of fun, right? This should allow them to, not only will the scores move a little bit better and you're going to have race rankings that move based on your results, but what makes you a B, a second tier or a second pin rider? That line can be changed at any point in time just by making that number from 750 to 700 or to 650, changing those breakouts.
So time will tell.
Right.
Yeah.
In the Zwift category enforcement, I've still been using Zwift and double dipping and racing on MyWhoosh, and it has me almost as a C cat now. And I literally have just set a new FTP, and it put my ZFTP from 312. I set it on the MyWhoosh Power Passport test. I didn't double dip. I just solely did it. But in a race before that, I did almost a similar effort, and I set a new FTP on Zwift and a new like 90-day power. Basically, my whole entire thing is new, and I went from a ZFTP of 312 down to 286. I am like 3.3 watts per kilogram now, almost in a C. So like the Zwift category math is so broken. It's so broken.
The ZFTP is just,
yeah,
it's just a bad calculation. I don't even know how else to say it. It's just a bad calculation. My intervals estimated FTP is 315, and my Zwift ZFTP is 288, and they have the same power curve in them. Like,
what's funny is I get the opposite. If I do a ramp test in Zwift will be like, yay, your FTP is 326, and intervals is like, nah, you're like 270.
So my intervals bumped up my FTP based on like a 9-minute effort, and Zwift doesn't even look at that to consider my FTP.
Yeah.
So, but I will tell you from the experience I have, intervals is way more right than Zwift is. Like, I'm not sure I could test at 315, but I can test over 300, and Zwift's got me down at 288. Like, they're way off. If you take my 20-minute power in Zwift and multiply it by 0.95, it's still over 300. Like, how are you guessing me at 288 when the traditional simple calculation has me 15 watts over that?
So is this going to eventually replace auto categorization, or is it like I said at the beginning, early stages of it, of course, but it's a Zwift lab, so it's in testing. This is the goal. Do they have a mission statement at the bottom of this? Say this is going to take over. No, it doesn't have any of that. Like, hey, we're leading toward, we're getting, oh, great. So casual racing is going to have. or is everything leaning towards ranking races or point races or whatever they're calling it? What is it? So racing score races.
I think some iteration of this will be the way by next winter.
Okay.
I think this is going to be like Pack Dynamics 4. I don't think Zwift. Pack Dynamics 4 kind of took us off guard. We didn't think Zwift would ever actually do it, and they did it much faster than we thought once they started testing it. I think this is going to move along pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Well, it's just math, right?
Well,
data in, data out. Where
it's to me, it's the best of both worlds, right? I mean, it's still power based, but it doesn't promote the sandbagging anymore. Doesn't matter what your power is, if you can't sandbag to win races, because as soon as you start winning races, it's going to pull your score up.
And that's
The only way you
all,
sandbag is you can only enjoy a couple races, and then you're jumping your scores.
that's the problem. Is
You're jumping a score,
sandbaggers don't
but-
want to lose.
no,
And
but is
so-
it jumping a score or changing the category? So you can still race in a B and sandbag, right? Or no?
No, I
No,
think
because
you're
if you
racing
keep
in your
winning,
points.
if you keep winning against the guys that are similar points to you, which are going to be in your starting pin, right? Let's not use the word category. The people that start in your starting pin are going to be within a range of your scores. If you perform well, your score will increase. The only way to keep from moving up and potentially risk jumping to the next starting pin is to do poorly. And that's the big thing I saw on Facebook. That's the big sticking point right now. And James Bailey came out and said, we're looking into this, but it's not there right now, because somebody asked, is there a penalty for DNFing?
Well, see, and the categorization system now, what happens is you can have a guy in the C's who just sits there and wins every sprint for the finish.
Yeah.
And
Right.
he never moves up because he soft pedals the entire race.
Yep.
This way, exactly. The moment he wins, now he's 600 points, 625, 650. And the problem is sandbaggers, they have this thing about winning. They can't lose. So they're not going to like all of a sudden, well, I got to lose my next 5 races by a lot to go back down so I can win again. No, that won't happen. They're just going to, you're going to equalize and you're going to be like, this is where you are.
Yeah.
Or if you cheat, you're going to cheat your way to the top and be like, dude's a cheater, because like there's no way he's putting up that kind of number.
They're not going to do any racing score races. They're just going to do the
eventually they're all
casual.
going to be.
Well, and I think they're all going to be racing score races eventually. You're not going to be able to
then
avoid them.
that's- Time will tell, as like I said. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, once this gets out of labs, I think this will be the way forward. Every single race will be a scored race. You enter a race, you're getting scored.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, Zwift should implement, if you DNF, then if I'm almost 100% sure Indy Velo, if you get say 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers in a race, there's a distance. Once you pass that, if you DNF for whatever reason, you get the winner's score. So like if you're just trying to sandbag or drop.
That's what I was going to bring up. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
But not that point, but the way Indy Velo fights it is DNFs and not showing up to things penalize you, because their ranking system is much better. We should probably have Bjorn on or somebody come on to help explain that, because their ranking system is way it's similar to like the chess ranking system, where it is what I think they're trying to do here, that sort of thing, where DNF and not showing up hurts your score.
Yeah, it should. Because that's what happens is people will be like, oh, I'm not doing well. And then they'll alt F4
that's why
the computer. But if you're 1 kilometer into a race, you're committed and you better race.
Yeah.
So,
well,
but I think there's two sides to that though too, right? So you're going to have these people at the top, and we had this on the old Zwift rankings, that was really frustrating. They would literally stop with 50 meters to go if they were going to lose the sprint, because they wanted to tout themselves as a top 5 Zwift racer, and they were looking at the absolutely pointless Zwift power ranking system that meant nothing and went nowhere. But I will tell you, and I know a few of them, they would literally stop. You would be sprinting next to them at 15 watts per kilo, and the result screen would come up, and you'd be like, where in the flip did he go? And you'd go back and look at my replay, and they would literally open the pairing screen because they were going to lose, and they were going to lose ranking. And they would race the whole damn race and stop. They'd be sitting 10 feet from the finish line. And then they would turn around and their team or their friends would be bragging about being top 5 Zwift racer rankings. And I'm like, come on, dude. You know, so I not that that's necessarily a problem, more than an arrogance
That
thing.
is a problem.
But
That is a
but
problem.
you also have the DNF side of it, where if a start and park, let's call it that, if a start and park brings your score down, while I'm working all day, I'm just going to start and park 10 times. And now I'm going to race as a D tonight and win. And tomorrow I'm going to start and park 4 more times and come back down and take, you know, like you can kind of sandbag that way. So I think your DNF has to require you to ride a good portion of the race.
Well,
Yeah.
and then
I think
what
it
would
needs to show
happen
up,
is
whether it
the
penalizes you or
system would
whatever.
pick that up. Like that is people doing that would clearly show in the system of like, hey, you shut it down 100 meters before the line. Like as the ladder system picks up sort of anti-cheat things, those are very plainly obvious, you know, ways that people are trying to do workarounds where they'd be like, yeah, no, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, they have to find a way to penalize or prevent abuse of the system.
Yes. Time will tell. Anything else? Almost 2 hours, everyone.
So just a quick thing we'll glance over because we almost revealed it last Sunday about the Zwift World Series of Zwift games.
No,
and then
nobody
Tuesday
contacted
morning,
me. Nobody
hey,
contacted me.
look what we got. So yeah. So the big thing that was that Kellison was, you know, sent us because we didn't see the absolute minuscule fine print on it. It wasn't, you know, keep to yourself.
The NDA.
The Zwift World Series.
Like, why are you sending it to me if you don't want me to talk about it?
So BK is actually shadow banned on Zwift right now. That's why he's top low ranking, because they threw him off.
What was it? What should my ranking be? Hold on, before we get to this, Brian. What's my ranking? Should my ranking be? You think, Casey? If I was like
I was giving you a hard time, but if you're seated based on 30-second and 10-minute power, I would think that you and I would probably be similar just based on our 90-day power profile. But your complete 90-day power profile is probably not in Zwift because you're not double dipping. I was double dipping most of my racing on Indy Velo and all that. So my Zwift power profile is my.
Take that off.
No, it's not on the screen. It's only for you guys that can see.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's all I was saying is Zwift doesn't have your full power profile because you're not double dipping like Brian White and I do. So Zwift has all my data essentially from the last 90 days. So mine's accurate. Yours probably isn't because I'm assuming what Zwift thinks your 10-minute power is probably not really your 10-minute power.
Yeah, and that's like
I don't. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So my big effort that I did recently, like intentional, was with that Power Passport test. That's the only thing in the past, I couldn't even tell you how long, that isn't on Zwift. You know what I mean? So yeah, Zwift has every piece of information on me.
So my 10-minute power, well, it doesn't even show. I got to get to the graph. My 10-minute power in Zwift right now is, can I even get there? It goes from 9:30 to 12. Well, my 11-minute power is 321.
Yeah, I'll look at mine quick. The something with the Zwift World Series and stuff I thought was kind of wild. If I'm reading it correctly, and this is from the Zwift Insider article.
Has it been announced?
Yeah, it's Zwift's article on Tuesday. Yeah.
I don't see
Zwift
it. Where's
on
Zwift?
Tuesday, Zwift Insider had an article about it.
It was like the next day after you almost oopsed it. It came out live to everybody.
I'm not in the loop, so I just want to make sure that we're not talking about something that we're not.
No. That's why I thought it was hilarious.
Where's the Zwift Insider article?
Here, let me find it real quick. I was looking for something else.
Elite Community Racing Calendar announced. That's it.
Yeah.
June 26th.
Like the Zwift World Series, is my understanding, is the
Zwift World Series base. Okay, all right. Sorry.
Is the pro guys in this fall. And then to do the spring and March competitive side, you got to qualify or verify in, I think it was like September, October. Like it was wild. I want to do this in the spring, I have to do the verification like this fall and then months later do it. If I was reading that correctly, I thought it was a wild delay, because like, let's just say I'm out racing outside or whatever, doing cyclocross. I'm not even thinking about Zwift at this point in September or even October. And then because I didn't do the verification, I can't do the Zwift games.
Well, then I'm sorry, but sour grapes on that. Like,
Well,
if you're into it, you're into it. And it's like, if you missed it, you missed it. But like, that's the thing. That's the thing we talked about at the beginning of the show that Casey brought up is like, what are the things that are pulling us away from Zwift? Well, this is the thing that's pulling us back to Zwift. Like, you need to stay on top of this stuff if you're interested in it. And so if they announce something and you miss it, that's on you. It's like, oh, I wanted to see that band. They came through town. I didn't even know they were here. That's on you. That ain't on the band, right? Allowing you saying, oh, well, I was working a summer gig and, I was,
So-
a lifeguard at the pool. And it's like, that's on you, Brian. Sorry.
The only thing
right?
Zwift hasn't done here, though, that MyWhoosh is doing, like I'm looking at the prize money and stuff like that they listed here. There's some decent money here, like 7th place overall in an individual race is similar money to what 3rd place would be in a Division 4 race on a MyWhoosh Sunday, right? So, but Brian White, myself, Brian Kellison, we're more likely to get a podium in a Division 4 MyWhoosh race than to get a 7th place here.
Yeah.
So, like, and what Zwift's not doing here is this is still top tier only,
Elite,
right? Like
this is elite. This is elite community.
Right.
That's the article.
But MyWhoosh is opening this prize pool up to. It's not necessarily going super deep into the community, but it's at least getting into lower level A's, upper level B's can get real money from MyWhoosh. They're not going to get money out of this. No way.
No.
This is the thing where it's not community. With MyWhoosh, right. It's racing. I think they want to have a community, just like everyone, like Indy Velo has a community, RGT had a community.
Isn't elite community an oxymoron kind of thing,
yes.
right? Like it's not a community race if it's elite.
Casual versus competitive. This is the thing we've talked about. It's casual versus competitive.
My subscription increase price goes to paying prize money for people.
Yes, and the Zwift Ride R&D and the paying the consultant to do the Zwift racing score. That's where that money's going to, right? So it is an oxymoron.
Zwift racing score guy.
And so the marketing of this, right, of like going back to Brian's point of, man, if you're in the middle, you're both. It's two sports. It's like you have to be if you're a football player and a baseball player, like when they start to cross over, like when you're having to go to spring practices for football or whatever it is, and you're playing baseball, you have to figure out like, okay, this is this, right? I was a skateboarder and a lacrosse player. Those didn't really cross pollinate. I didn't have any issues with that. Somebody's purring into the microphone. That's pretty cool.
I have to laugh. Are you looking at the key dates on this? Like I'm laughing because
I think
like
so.
What they announced this middle of the week this week.
Yeah.
And their first key date is through the end of June, right? So today, right? You got a couple hours left.
You had
chances
a week
for teams and riders to ask any questions. I'm like, what? They had 3 business days to ask questions after this was announced. Like, okay. So this is happening right now. I was thinking this was like in the fall. Like this is. Oh, okay.
Yeah. July 8th is the Zwift World Series rule book distributed. Okay. Deadline for teams. So this is also, we just went over the schedule for qualifying for Worlds. Like, it's now becoming less summer is where we're off, or northern hemisphere summer is off, because when southern hemisphere, Barney and all the other like Fez and Hard Claws and all these people that are the winter months for them, they're inside. They're doing a lot more miles. They're doing a lot more kilometers. it's only a little lull. There was like a little lull in June, and then like Casey's bringing up these key dates, and you're back in. Like I gotta ramp up again. Well, there's not a lot of ramp down.
45-degree shed now. Start racing.
Man, that was tough.
So I'm
45 degrees
confused
Celsius,
with,
by the way.
I guess I'd have to really dig into this. I'm confused on how the teams work. So they're listing the teams from before, but if you get in through the open qualifiers, are you placed on a team, or you just don't get to go for a team, or can you go in as a new team and try to get like 10 guys qualified? There needs to be some parity in the teams, right? Like a team can't have more than 6 riders, even if they all qualify.
You missed your chance to ask questions, Casey. That was the end of June.
I know. Well, no, I
Today's the
didn't.
last day.
I've got 3 hours.
Oh yeah, we still have some hours. Okay, you got 3 hours.
And they're Pacific time, so you got a couple, extra hour or two.
Yeah, there you go.
So-
yeah, you're Eastern. No, Mountain.
He's central.
Yeah, this is what I keep coming back to in Zwift Elite Racing is it always feels like they're like, oh, it's open to anybody to come in the hard way. But if you were hand selected from the beginning and have continued to ride through on these teams, you're in the easy way, right? Because these teams get to automatically pass 3 riders in, period. It doesn't say who those riders are, what those riders care, but these teams, so the real competitive people in this event are going to come from these seeded teams, not as much from the open qualifiers. You're going to get a few from the open qualifiers, but it's like, is it really open community elite racing, or is it they're giving you a back door to sneak into the elite racing?
That is the Hollywood question, right? It's the rad racing. It's Crew Jones, not rider. He's not on Mongoose. He's not a Redline or Huffy. Those things. These are very inside references if you've never seen the movie Rad. But he was a local kid where they had this competition, and he went up through the ranks, got his own funding and sponsorships and stuff like that, and then he won. Spoiler alert, it's a 1984 movie. So, but you're saying this, and the reality is exactly what you're saying, Casey, is like, hey, it's so hard there's elite community is not those together. It's more of like, there's an elite community of riders, then there's the casual riders, then there's the people that just like going to events and stuff like that. But like the elite riders that have time to group teams, or they want to do teams, they're going to be better off than a lone rider that's competing to get in. I did Echelon Racing League as a we called it it was like an amalgamation of riders. So riders that didn't have teams, that because there was Next and a bunch of other teams that were racing in RGT, and then we all grouped together, and I was sort of like the team manager, because there were some people that were like, oh, I don't have a team, but I want to race in the Echelon Racing League. We then built a team, right? That's sort of, I think, would be a good option to be like, hey, we're picking people for the unattached, and then all the unattached riders sort of race together. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and people like being privateers. So,
I guess I'm trying to figure out what Zwift's motivation is. So they're saying maximum field size is 50. And then they're also saying basically they've already awarded 24 spots to these teams. So 50% of the riders don't have to open qualify for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
shouldn't they just, you got to qualify, period, right? No one is guaranteed a spot. Go race for it.
That changed because the Zwift games that I did, it was, hey, sign up for a chance to qualify. And then I got an email because maybe the numbers were low, and they're like, hey, welcome to Zwift games. And I'm like, okay. Because I just did it for the show, obviously. And then, I got annulled from the second race, whatever it was. That's whatever. That's just like me getting a cramp in a race, all part of the show content. The idea is good. It's similar to this sort of like in-person world championships, where it's like, hey, we're going to funnel out the riffraff and get it fine-tuned. But if you can sneak through that fine tuning,
yeah,
good for you. That's a great story. And that's the thing, is we need to cover those stories. That's the thing, is if Crew Jones is a great story, it's made up, but you have the Rudies of the world that sort of like, or the Rocky, for lack of a better one, is, you know, guy off the street who's a whatever, they sign him up to compete for the world championships or the world title of boxing. Hey, come and race Zwift games. Maybe you find a diamond in the rough, which is like the Zwift Academy, right?
yeah.
But
I mean, you can get an amazing person through on that other 50%.
Yeah,
right.
I think
I'm not sure why Zwift is gifting 24 slots.
Because they don't want to piss off. It's like the appearance fees. It's like you don't want the Matthew Vanderpoels of the world to kind of like not be a part of it. You want to just, hey, I'm not going to train for this Zwift thing. I just want to show up and do it. There's going to be that.
And I understood that point of view when Zwift wasn't offering any money, when Zwift was just saying like, come be a part of our elite thing and help build the community and do all that. Now that there's money involved, if you want the money, you got to come participate, period. Right? Like, why are we, you know?
Okay. Is it like tennis tournaments? Like there's some people are invited, and then there's some people that have ranking points and they're kind of automatically invited. And then you have like the wild cards or the asking, hey, I saw this person do over here, or there's an agent kind of, it's like always that sort of thing. I'm with you on the, hey, there's money involved. Let's make it open to everybody. Like everyone has to work hard to do it. But there's also a point where like, there's people that want to be a part of it that are a big name, or there are reasons why people would show up to watch it and want to be interested in viewing the competition. So yeah, that's why I think it's like, hey, we're giving you 26 out of, we could give you 0, and we're giving you 26.
Yeah, it's trying to figure out, like, if you're trying to build a new, how does a team that's getting stronger and stronger and stronger and drawing in more elite level talent, how do they get in the back door like these other teams already are? How do they get to be on that list? And how do you prevent kind of what you saw happen about a year or two ago with some of those big elite teams dropped off of that list, and then you saw the team hopping. Oh, my team lost its spot. I'm going to go join this other team.
Yeah.
Because they have a spot. And then that person all of a sudden gets that pass because they team hopped.
Yeah. Which results, I mean, winning cures everything. So it's like, hey, how do you be a smaller team? You win more. Well, how do you win more? Well, you have to have a better team. Well, I can't compete about these other teams because I don't have any results. It's like this. But it's pretty cool. At least they're trying to get people to not leave.
The biggest struggles Zwift has had that I've seen lately is they've lost all that elite for a while. It's been quiet. So at least they're trying to drum it back up, because where's Barney? Where's Lionel Vujicic? Where are these guys at? Well, these guys are racing.
On MyWhoosh.
These guys are racing at 4 a.m. on Sundays when I'm sleeping, and that's the only time they're racing because that's their payday.
It's also not 4 a.m. for them, or 2 a.m. for me. It's like Barney is like 6 o'clock at night or something like that, and then Lionel is like midday because he's in Europe. So that's why. But Lionel has been on. He was on, what was that show? The Zimmunique, or then the Virtual Velo, Velo podcast. They had Lionel on because when they did the MyWhoosh sort of Michael Kaminsky, Zach Nair, and Lionel verification thing.
Mm-hmm.
Lionel was like, I like this platform. It's like the who I like racing with is on this platform. It has nothing to do with ever. It's like, this is like that sort of like small pool, which we talked about at the beginning, that small pool of racers, and like the cream rises to the top, and he just enjoys the racing.
Yeah.
Yes, the payday is one thing, but he's like, I like racing because I like this racing. And that's the reason why it's sort of, you're having this great point of the Premier League sort of tapered away. The Zwift, the ZRL, the Zwift Racing League, or ZRL, whatever it is sort of the this sort of fun thing where, everyone, and they're doing it. I guess they're doing a summer version. The elites would race year round. If there was a reason for them to race year round, they would. And that's where it's like, hey, what can we do? And I think this is one of those things, is like, how do we get people to stay on the platform racing year round? And this is it. Money is one thing. Prize money is one thing. People are driven by prize money. There's other people that just enjoy the sport. And then there's a mixture of like, hey, I want to do it, but I don't want to focus too much on it, but I'll show up and race.
But, and I agree with that. Ignoring platform for a minute, what I miss is 3 or 4 years ago, we had Barney personality, we had Lionel personality, we had that stuff visible to us at that time through Zwift affiliated media outlets, right? Like that's how we got to know these guys racing, right?
I agree.
And whatever has happened in the racing, we don't get as spectators anymore, other than the people like Barney who are willingly putting it out there. There's no production providing that anymore. And I feel like that's a big miss, because that was a big deal back then. These guys are awesome guys. It's about more than just the racing.
Totally agree. The reason why that it's gone away is because this is my opinion, we lost our way of telling the stories of these people, right? The avatars are emotionless. They're just not fun to watch an avatar go around in a blob and do the thing. It's hey, we know the person behind the avatar. If you don't show the person in the webcam, that's fine. But at least if you do more races where you show them, or you do more stories of them, and you spend the money to show off the stories, the athletes, right? Because I'm watching the Euro Cup and the Copa, Copa America Cup. You're seeing the athletes, but it's also the athletes are on the field. You see them like, oh, okay, cool. You do like, where we have no real visual of who they are behind the avatar. That's where we lost it. And I've said this all the time. I don't know if people have heard me say it before, but the stories of the athletes is going to save this sport.
So does the UCI 20-man final, does that start resurrecting that? Because you get that in person. You get that sweat. You get to see the sweat dripping off their goatee, when they're laying over the handlebars.
Yes, if the UCI does it with the right production company and gets the right stuff going on, and they build up a bunch, like all the 20 competitors, what is it, 20 men and 20 women, or is it 10 and 10, whatever it is. You do women's stories for the women event, and you do all the men's events, and you do pieces of everything, because then you have those in the bank, right? I come from sports broadcasting, so like when the riders are in a breakaway, you go to that piece and you go, oh, hey, we talked to this person earlier, and they have a little thing, and you go, oh, because I've seen like what was it? Who did a really good one? Flanders Classics. This is an RGT race. So they did a piece, if you can find it on YouTube, Lee, if you can find it. So Flanders Classics, the ones that put on the Tour of Flanders, and they do all this stuff. Well, they had during the pandemic, and I think the year after, I think it stopped 2022, maybe 2023. They had a thing on Lionel, and they had him in his cave. And so they would cut to that. And they had like a whole, they would bring in pro riders and they would commentate. And then I was like starting to show up, and then I got Lucas to start showing up with me. So we were the English speakers. So they would do their Flemish or Dutch broadcast, and they would sprinkle in some English, because they're like, oh, they have some writers, because we were adding stories. And then they had the webcam thing, because they had the Zoom room and everything. You start to see who's who and who's all this stuff, and you're like, oh, I want to follow this person.
We was having to do that.
I was like, hey, dude, let's do this race. And then he couldn't do a weight video, whatever. That's a funny story. He didn't know how to crop his weight video, like a boomer like I am. I know how to do my weight video on my phone. So he would send me his videos, and then we'd have to send our fit file and our weight video like immediately after.
Yeah.
But those races were like 12 kilometers, and Zach Nair was doing them. Lionel was doing them, and like, dude, it would just go like, it was like a little sliver of like a race, like the Dwars du Vlaanderen, and they would just do an RGT, a magic road. And we'd be all going, and I would try to get in a break, or I would do like a little thing, because I'm a whatever. And then it would just split apart at the end, but you can then see they would cut to the Zoom room of like Lionel in his cave, like, oh, dying, or, whoever, Zach Nair, because he's like stone-faced poker guy. Those are the things that we want. We build those up. And Damon Bates, friend of the show, ZMS, he's really good at having the Zoom room where he's got a slice of like 3 or 4 riders that are in either the race that they're doing, like the Swedish thing we talked about, the Swedish race that we had. The stories of the riders is going to do this. And I think you're right that if they do it right, they're going to have it at the World Championships. And so we need to hope that they do that. And I think they will. But I still like virtual. I don't want in person as much as everyone else wants. In person would be great. I think the sport is going to thrive with proper verification, which is what IndieVelo, like Bjorn and George, those guys do at their thing, that are, we can catch you anywhere, even with the MyWhoosh. Like, hey, you got to come here and do your verification, right?
Yeah.
That is going to be the backbone of the sport. And then the stories of the athletes is what's going to make the people outside of the sport, the not like us, we're the riders and everything, like my dad, watch it and go, oh, hey, I'm enjoying this because it's like the Tour de France. Like I call my dad, he doesn't cycle. He's not a cyclist. I called him yesterday. Hey dad, Tour de France is on. Oh, I didn't know. Yeah. Thanks for telling me. He's going to watch the tour he'll watch it 3 times a day. He'll watch it when it's live and he'll watch a replay when they do the stories. You know, they go around and they get all the other stories and they do their package pieces like NBC does it all. That's what we need in the sport. And if the sport can handle it, can it do it?
It's so
I
funny
want to
that
know.
CVR
You don't
was
know he races at
nailing this.
midnight. By the way,
Hold on, one at a time.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Barney wants you to know he races at midnight.
Midnight. Okay, whatever.
All I was just going to say was
he can stay up and do that. I have to I try to go to sleep and then wake up at 2 to do a 3 o'clock race, which I'm going to do again. So.
No, I was going to say is it's funny that CVR was nailing this 8 years ago, and they're just finally catching up to what CVR was doing 8 years ago.
Yeah, because the guys I was thinking about that. The guys calling the race in CVR kind of personally knew the 10 or 20 people that were racing live. You know, even if you watch the one that I did really well in, it was, you know, watching Hunter Allen and hearing, I still listen to this because it's me, but hearing Hunter Allen be shocked when I won the race, like that was genuine. Like I was the underdog. I wasn't expected to come out there and beat the Zwift sprinters and the pro triathlete. And, you know, they all picked somebody else in that race and but they knew we had personal relationships. We spent time with those guys, you know, that were calling the race. You know, same thing when Nathan Guerra is involved, right? With Zwift, he knows these guys. So
you're like our crew. You're our crew Jones. You're the one who wasn't supposed to win. And you came in and won. But yeah, there's something to it. Like even this. Remember during the pandemic, and there was the ZRL or this. I said it like I'm a Canadian. ZRL, whatever. And you would have like Dave Toll and Nathan. They do these, and they were like calling out. They call Panvelo, my club, and you're like, oh yeah, this and this and this. Yeah, that makes you feel good as an athlete. But then there's people that like start to pick up on it, like, oh, okay, I know Next Esports presented by Insured, right? Barney's on it. Ewan's on it, right? People that I know, they're streaming. We do it ourselves when we stream ourselves, but when the broadcasts pick it up, then it's like, hey, we need to latch on to these stories. You know, stories. That's it. We've had quite a long story to tell here. Anything else?
Yeah.
Questions from these knuckleheads who are trying to tell me they're not racing at 6 p.m.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask. Okay, you read the MyWhoosh rule books, and it's stated in there like 10 times. At any point, if you're requested to do live testing, you have to submit to the live testing. So I'm assuming live testing is an all expenses paid trip to UAE. So how bad do I have to doctor it up to get invited to a week vacation in Abu Dhabi for live testing, right? Like, what do I have to do?
Ask those guys that had to do it, right? Wasn't it 4 athletes? It was
I think Lionel went.
Lionel's
no, in all
Michael,
seriousness,
and then
though,
one
I mean,
woman, I believe, right?
Yeah, there was a few of them that did it. They take it seriously, and I appreciate that. At that level, they're not. I don't think they're calling people out there for random weird stuff, but I think they're calling it as they see it. I think they're being fair with how they call it. And those really high level guys, I don't think there was big question marks against the guys that they called out there as much as it was to instill confidence in the product that
Yes.
they're trying to build, right? And it was, these guys are doing really good. Proving them right is worth the cost of bringing them here and doing it. So
it's worth a listen. The Virtual Available podcast that had him on, and they talk about it, right? And the guy who was on Cy Bradley now works for MyWhoosh.
Okay.
And so yeah, he's not on that. He's not on the show anymore. I think they hired him to do stuff.
That's what. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know he
I
was
think he's
officially...
like I think he's director of events or something. I think he was just recently hired. But so they had, it was Cy Bradley and another guy, and they had the three. They had Lionel, not three of them. I think they had Lionel and Zach on, and they talked about how the pressure to do well, but also like they took care of all the stuff to make sure that they could do their right test so they could do it. It was not like, hey, we don't believe you. It was more of like, hey, we want you to do what you need to do what you do. So that's where it was like this sort of like, it seemed like a positive thing, less than a, hey, you're not who you are and we want you to fail. It was like, if you can do it, let's do it. You do your best.
Like back in the CVR days, I don't think it scales very well now with the larger group, but back in the ZRL or in the CVR days, it was basically, they would question it, and you had to pass the smell test on whether you were good or not. But then it would be like, well, asking the organizer, like, well, how can you be sure? And he's like, you can show up and look like a fool if you want to, or you can just say, oh, you're not available. But he's like, basically, he said at any point in the contract, it says basically, if you aren't who you said you were from home, I don't have to pay you the prize pool. And basically last place prize was enough to cover your trip, basically, is what it came down to. So, but there was no like pre-verification to that, other than if you want to come look like an idiot, you can come look like an idiot. And there might've been a few people that looked that way.
Yeah. Right on. Any diamonds in the rough in that comment, or are they just commenting?
That's it. I know.
Anything? Nothing. You got more, Brian? Come on.
Well, I was just gonna say the performance verification test
is a bonus stream. Holy, let's go.
Yeah,
no, I'm just joking. I'm enjoying it. I've been enjoying the show. Keep going.
It's for all the hoops you jump through and stuff. Yeah, it was an hour workout, but I was in my basement for 3 hours because
So Brian for everyone that didn't know, Brian did the MyWhoosh Sunday Race Club, or whatever, the MyWhoosh Power Passport
test,
which is
so I got a Kicker V6, so I can officially do it. And like it was a 3-hour process to do it, 1 hour workout, and then I kept riding. Like while YouTube was uploading the video and everything, I kept riding and everything, and then I got so it wasn't necessarily, the test wasn't that bad because I've done those Zwift races that were harder, but the actual test was, I'm not going to say easy because it sucked, but over the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that bad. But it was everything else. It's like, geez, how much more am I going to do? Now that I've done it, I'll be probably a little smoother with it and understand it. I still haven't heard back yet, so we'll see here in a few days if I did everything right.
I was reading through the protocols on it, and I was like, I got to do a lot of work to set up if I want to do this test. And like, if I didn't have the streaming set up in that, it would be kind of hard to do.
That's
because like the video can't break view of you through this whole process. And I'm like, okay, my cycling room is a carpeted room. It's not appropriate for a scale. So I'm like, I got to go get a piece of plywood to put on the floor with my scale and my weight. But all that stuff needs to be in the room before I start and within the video before I start, because I can't leave the room to get something I forgot, because the weigh-in has to be seamless with the end of the test. So it's like, I can do the whole damn test and be like, I left the weight out in the hallway. And if technically, if you walk out that door and go off video, you've broken the rules, right? Like all those things. And Brian, why do you have a metric tape measure? That's what I want to know. Like I watched Brian's
'Cause he's a
video and
smart
I was like,
individual.
they're gonna have to translate inches to centimeters for me because I'm not gonna go buy a metric tape measure just to
It's-
do my height.
We had
They have
my
both.
daughter
They have
crochets
both.
and stuff, and she had these little flexible things.
robotics.
One side was inches, one side was centimeters.
Okay.
So it worked out perfect. But yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking about that with the testing. Like if some guy's just doing this with his iPhone, like that's a
people
lot.
do that. I remember that there was people back on the first national championships when it was, I don't remember when it was, Masters stuff, and there was people on the Zoom call with Frank Kunda from Echelon, and people were asking like, oh, I was doing the verification because they had this similar thing where you had to record yourself. You didn't have to stream it, but if you wanted to, and this one woman was asking like, oh, I guess I could set up my phone behind me and do the thing with my screen on the stuff, because you had to like film yourself doing the calibration in the you had to do that, you had to do the weight verification, and that, you know, those are the hoops people were jumping through. I already had everything set up because I was helping people like, oh, you do this and you do this, but Frank was also helping other people. But there's people that are like, hey, I just want to race. This is the thing, is if you're jumping through hoops, your part of that is the hope is the other competitors are jumping through the hoops, and then the prize money that's involved is, you know, is the reason why we're jumping through more hoops than we would a casual thing.
Yeah, so I took I had 3 USB extensions from Roku's. I unplugged all the Roku's and I set up a second webcam back in the corner. So no matter what I did in this room, it was on video.
On camera.
And then I had 3 different scenes set up. Like if you didn't stream, like, you know what I mean, and have this ability, it'd be a pain in the ass.
I got like a week of cleaning to do before you get to see this whole room.
Yeah.
Well, and I think as streamers, if we find it difficult, then for like the average person, because like nationals, I had friends going, how do I even film myself? Like they had like a list of questions, like even the most basic thing, they were like, I have no idea, because to do the verification test, you had to film yourself with like Zwift in this film. And they're like, I'm like, well, I offered people to use my house. I was like, bring your trainer. I have my stream set up and we'll like record a YouTube video for yourself.
I do appreciate though what they're going through. When I read through the rules, it, as rigid as some of it seems to be, that it doesn't leave a lot of room for the funny business. Like you have to test on the devices that you're going to race. If you go buy a new power meter, even though it's your secondary device, you have to retest. Like I'm not sure why they don't allow optical heart rate monitors, but I'd have to go dig out one of my heart rate straps because it has to be a strap. And you know, even the weight part, right? One of the biggest arguments I had on weight way back in the day, you know, was about the proper weigh-in protocols. You're not supposed to weigh in after a workout, before a workout. It has to be when you get out of bed. That, like, their weight is just after your profile test or after whatever is at the monthly finale. So they're actually intentionally saying it's after a workout. So your weight may come in a little low, but the assumption is no one is starving themselves or sweating themselves to death before their profile test or before their big monthly race. So everyone, it's a level playing field, right?
Yeah, they just draw the line. They're like, hey, just do it after the profile test. And it's like, whether you've done the sweat fasting and the food fasting or whatever you want, that's fine. We're doing our thing at our time.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, it's clear. Hopefully it's clear enough for people, whether they want to jump through the hoops or not. So, all right. Anything more? That's 2.5 hour show, huh?
Yeah.
Blame Casey for this one.
I'm getting tired.
Hey, nothing like it's only 7:30, right?
Yeah, 7:30. Yeah.
7:30, buddy. We're gonna stay
have a
up
holiday
late
tomorrow, so I don't have to go to work.
Oh, what is it in Canada?
It's Canada Day. Canada's birthday.
Canada Day. Well, happy birthday.
Oh no, that's June.
See, we tried to beat out the US by 3 days.
Canada Day. Yes, I have it on my calendar.
We're awesome.
I have it. All right.
Yeah,
now we're stalling when we should get out of here, but all right, let's keep stalling. Go, Casey. One more thing.
Since I haven't worked for 2 weeks and I get a short week too, so I'm good with that.
All right. On that note, we didn't even play the music. We didn't even start with the music. So
We had some flute.
We did have flute.
We
did have flute. That would be awesome if your daughter was playing flute while you're doing your passport test. Anyone else in the comments? Anyone last thing before we move on to the next week? All right, we're going to try to get Josh Peacock on. I think who else we wanted to get on? Bjorn to talk about their ranking system.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to have a play the music. That's what that means. Brian's talking about stuff. Play the music. All right, get out of here.
Yeah, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.
Later. Have a good night. Thanks again, Casey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.